Hello everyone, and welcome back to the latest instalment of our Retail Giants webcast in association with our fabulous partners Newton. I'm absolutely delighted to be joined today by Dame Fiona Kendrick, one of the best known business personalities from the UK of the last decade. Dame Fiona's amazing CV includes being the former chairman and CEO of Nestlé UK and Ireland, advisor to Newton Europe, deputy chair of the Institute of Apprenticeship Board as well. Fiona, welcome.
Thank you, Chris. And I have to say, this is a real privilege and honour to be part of your sort of Retail Giant series. I don't think I've ever been called a giant before, but I'll take that. But it's really good to be here and to joining you today.
Well, giant you certainly are, particularly in the area of food and drink. And I think that's a great place for us to start because as a sector, it's facing two enormous challenges post-pandemic, particularly I think around recruitment and retention of talent. And the war for talent and getting staff and people into businesses and keeping them in businesses is a very hot topic at the moment. Do you think those challenges are specific to that sector?
Well, you're right, Chris. I mean, there's no question food and drink, has got these challenges, which I find extraordinary because it's an amazing sector to work in. It's dynamic, it's fast moving, it's kind of ever changing, and it provides just lots and lots of opportunities to build a great career. So you have to say, is it unique to food and drink, this talent issue? No, I don't think so. But I do think that we need to address it within food and drink because I do think that the opportunities there are just immense. So, I've had 40 great years working for Nestlé. I worked here in the UK and I worked also in a global job as well. And I look back on those and I think the diversity and the sort of breadth that, food and drink offered me is just there for the taking for so many people today. So why is it, therefore, that we're not sort of attracting and retaining them? I don't think it's unique to food and drink, but I do think it probably is the number one issue in the boardroom today. And it's like, the whole discussion around, is the next CEO going to be HR sort of directors? Yeah. And it's obvious that, companies now need to put people front and central to their sort of strategy. So it doesn't just sit in what I call the HR or the people strategy. This has to be now the company strategy. So I've done a lot of thinking about kind of what do we need to do to retain and attract them in. And it's very clear that I think the conversation is changing. So if I look back years ago, when I used to meet, young new sort of graduates, apprentices, or even people that were changing sort of career, mid-career, I would often sort of talk to them about, why are they attracted to Nestlé? Why are they attracted to food and drink? And they'd have a very sort of structured, this is the kind of career I want. And I do think, that I need to get to this point at this sort of age. And they talk about remuneration. The conversation, Chris, has changed. Today, it's much more about what's your culture? What are the values and principles that actually you adhere to here? What's your well-being strategy? And I can't believe how in such a short time we've managed to move to well-being being now front and central as a kind of a recruitment criteria almost for people joining companies. So I kind of dug under this a bit and sort of tried to understand what's happening. And you refer to the pandemic, everybody's had a really tough time, particularly during lockdown. And there's no question that mental well-being has really come to the fore as a result of that. So coming down a few layers underneath that, I've looked at kind of what are the things that have impacted, in particular, women and their sort of mental well-being. 1 in 4 women today, post-lockdown, have got some form of mental health issues to a greater or lesser degree. That's versus 1 in 10 for men. So why is it that females are actually more impacted? Now, we all know, they carry a bigger load at home, they're probably more responsible for childcare, they probably run the household as well, maybe have aging parents that they care for as well. On top of that, they're doing probably a big job. And during lockdown, a lot of their support services just disappeared. So they're sort of deprived from sort of sleep, they're trying to juggle all these things, and it's tough when you're there trying to manage all these things as a female. So therefore, what do employers need to do
Yes, I
to
was gonna
actually
ask
really address that? What are they going to do to try and make sure that they help and support, particularly women, as far as sort of mental health issues? So the first thing is they've got to make it front and central part of their strategy, not in the HR area, but actually at board level. Secondly, they've got to get it out there and have a conversation about it. They've got to talk about it. They've got to make it transparent. Do not make it a taboo subject. They need to probably make somebody accountable for it. And they need to also probably provide a bit of support. They can't be mental health providers. I'm not in any way suggesting that all employers are all of a sudden become mental health providers. No. But they do need to have partners there. But they need to make it part of the conversation because it's critical. And I think it's going to be ever more critical for the future in terms of recruiting and training.
And we've heard a lot in the media, particularly at the moment, around more progressive businesses moving to a 4-day week for 5 days pay. How important is flexible working hours, flexible working patterns, do you think, to solve some of these problems?
Absolutely key. We need to kind of understand why people need more flexibility. And of course we've had flexibility in different ways of working now over the past sort of few years. So there's no question that, companies need to rethink it. Does that mean sort of, you're going to have more 4 days, and perhaps have concentrated hours in those 4 days? Are you going to have flexible hours through the days? They've got to think differently about it to kind of accommodate, I think, all of these issues that employees now facing.
And I've heard you talk before about a key friction point between business retaining their talented female staff and not, is that moment when they come back to work after they've had children. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
I can, and I can refer to, my time, when I was on maternity leave and re-entering the workplace. This is a tough time for sort of females. We know for somehow we just get great females that start their career, they're committed, they're determined, they want to get to the top, but we lose them, and we lose them en route very likely when they're actually taking time out for childcare to have children. So what do we need to do to try and kind of bring them back and get them back onto their sort of career path? For me, that first 3 to 6 months of actually coming back into the workforce was really important. You need your confidence rebuilding. You come back and you've got all these sort of, your peers are still as competitive as ever, and you have been out of it for the last 6 months, year, or however you've chosen the length of time to be out of your sort of role. And all of a sudden you come back and you have to get back on to, the career path and be just as kind of competitive and determined, and you've got lots of things now that you need to sort of grapple with. So employers need to really understand that. They need to talk to the women and understand what they need. So they need to have, obviously, a lot of flexibility, particularly in those first few months, is really, really critical. They need to look for more job shares, more part-time working, or look at flexible hours that actually mirror sort of childcare. This is for a relatively short time for people. It's an investment for the future, because these women will make phenomenal leaders, but it just means you have to invest differently. And I believe that investment for the sort of, flexibility they're asking, I think it's not just exclusive to women either. I think we've got so many dual career couples now. So I think you've got to think about flexibility for men as well. I look at my sort of, my sons themselves. You can just see what they're all sort of grappling with today. And an employer of the future is one that actually recognises, I think, how employees are going to be sort of wanting to manage their work-life balance in a better way.
Yeah, and we obviously know that diversity is inextricably linked with the overall well-being of a business, and nonetheless, women in senior leadership positions across the food and drink sector, across the retail sector, remain relatively low compared to their male counterparts. Is there a glass ceiling, do you think?
No, absolutely not. I think it's there for the taking. I think that people just need to not try, as I say, and structure their career, in a too narrow way. Grab the opportunities as they come along. But I think that there are just so many opportunities for women. Yes, I've managed, to have a great career, to be married. I've had children, and I've got back into the career, and it's there for the taking. But speak up, take the initiative, and really make sure that you sort of talk to the employees about what actually your needs are.
Yeah. I want to delve a little bit more into the aspect of leadership itself, as yourself a very successful female leader of a huge multinational businesses. Do you believe that leaders are born leaders? Is it inherent in someone's DNA?
No. You learn to be a leader. You learn to be a leader, and you're not born a leader. I often use, Chris, the analogy of kind of what is your sort of leadership brand? What is the brand that you want to stand for, that's got your sort of fingerprints on it, that's got your DNA on it, that you really feel is your, is about you? Because as we all know, authenticity and, being the real you is absolutely front and central to being, a true sort of leader. So I don't think you're born a leader. I think you learn a lot en route, both in actually work as well as outside of work. And, I give you an example. When I first joined Nestlé, I went into sales. Did I plan to go into sales? Absolutely not. That was not my thinking. I thought, I'd become a marketeer and I'd go into they put me in sales. It was just the most fantastic 3 years of my life. I learned self-discipline, I learned how to motivate myself, I learned how to get myself organised, and I learned great interpersonal skills. Great interpersonal skills, which have stayed with me. So, I do think that you fill your sort of leadership toolbox en route in life, and you actually then realise that actually you can fall back on a lot of the skills that you need to be a leader. Now, that is not to say that, companies do need to, give some training for sort of leadership. Of course they do. And there are some sort of tangible sort of, skills that you need. But ultimately, I do think that leadership is about how you grow as an individual and how you actually just continue to get that experience.
And I've heard you talk very passionately, actually just picking up on that point around the training of leaders, training of management, but you believe it's very linked to some of the issues the UK has around productivity as well, don't you?
I do, and there's been a lot talked about, why hasn't the UK come out quite as strongly as some of the other sort of markets and countries post the sort of 2008 sort of, decline? Why haven't we come out as strongly? And there's been also lots of reports, and I've been lucky enough to be involved in sort of productivity and talking about this with some of the top leaders in the UK across many sectors. And actually, when you sort of get down underneath it, it's not about productivity. Is not about us working harder, or about sort of investment, or about more innovation, or about higher efficiencies in factories. It's about training managers to be great managers. And it's fascinating, we train accountants to be great accountants, we train engineers to be great engineers, and yet actually when you get probably one of the most important roles, the manager, we don't do enough training for them. And that for me is now something that I think employers have got to sort of grapple with. How do you train managers to inspire, to motivate, to just get the best out of people? It's the most important role.
Yeah.
And yet somehow we don't equip them.
No, quite right. I'm sure there will be lots of young aspiring leaders watching this webcast and looking up to you as a huge role model. I'd be fascinated to understand a little bit about your own career path. How conscious were you in terms of carving it out, in your own story?
Chris, I wasn't conscious at all. I started, frankly, more or less at the bottom in Nestlé. I started in sales as a young sort of, in the commercial world. And, I didn't structure my career and say, I need to be here at this stage, at this stage. I just thought, we'll just see how it goes. And I had 40 phenomenal years with Nestlé, both here in the UK as well as globally. And I look back at it and I think, there were just opportunities that came up that I never thought would be things that I would do. So I got the opportunity to go into food services, to run the food services business. That was never kind of part of my plan, but oh my goodness, what a phenomenal experience those 3 or 4 years were. And you just realise that, you know, you need to grasp these kind of opportunities en route and you will find your way. So no, I didn't have this clear-cut route of how it was. It kind of sort of, you know, I was ambitious, yes. I was really hardworking, yes. But I also wanted to enjoy my role, and I loved it. And so, you know, when I look to those young people today and I say, what can I sort of advise them to do today? I'd say, you know, don't structure your career too formulaically. Just think about just, you know, enjoying it. Grasp the opportunities as they come along. You don't know what they'll actually offer. Take initiative.
Yeah.
Nobody will ever knock you back for taking initiative. And I think that's how you get yourself noticed. But beyond everything, find a job you love. If you love a job, you'll embrace it, you'll do well in it, and you will flourish. And I think for me, I've been so lucky. I've loved my career. And I think that as a result of it, I've done great. And that's what I would pass on as my key advice to young people. Find a job you love.
Absolutely amazing. Do what you love. Fantastic advice there. Fiona, it's been an absolute pleasure being able to talk to you today, and absolutely fascinating to listen to you on such a wide range of topics as well. Thank you also to Newton Europe, who continue to be a fantastic partner of the Retail Trust. That was the latest instalment of our Retail Giants webcasts, and we look forward to seeing you again soon.